Platinum, the last of the real water cooler talk shows on YouTube. Our beloved Texas Longhorns take an embarrassing loss between the hedges this past Saturday, and man, that was a tough one. That was a tough one, and we kind of always knew this team was very flawed, but I expected much more fight and much more discipline and just a better product on the field coming off a bye week. I know it's against Georgia, but that was just a pathetic all-around showing by the team. There were some couple bright spots, but a lot of dark, depressing spots too. So we're going to dive into all that and kind of just look where we can go forward. And I don't know, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, but we'll elaborate on all that. But before we do that and get into it, please give us a like and a subscribe and comment. Give us some love. Give us some love. We're trying to make this channel blow up again. So we appreciate y'all in advance. Kyle Reyes. So we were confident going into this game. I was there with some buddies, some of the Iron Spikes buddies, and I felt really good, man. And it didn't go how I expected at all. And that's not to disrespect Kirby, because I know that they're a good team and a great team. They're the gold standard of college football, but we got 5 stars. We got NFL players too, man, and we got a good coach too, and that's just unacceptable. What were your thoughts, Kyle?
Well, man, if you can't tell by my earlier reactions, it's just pain. It's just pain. But getting into this game, I have 3 questions to ask the fans, to ask the viewers, and to you as well. Probably is number one: is 48 hours enough time to get over the depression, let the end of the world feelings come through, and just get all the misery out? Because you got to get focused up again for the back half of the 2 game season you got still left. I guess my question is, do you have it? Are you as a fan ready for that? Can you get over this embarrassing loss? Personally, for me, I self-medicated with 2005 highlights in the documentary, watching every Texas OU game where Texas won, as well as rewatching the 2018 Sugar Bowl. So for me personally, I got over it. I got to watch Texas beat Georgia, even though it's whatever, it's recording. But it's a tough loss because number one, the one thing I like to say about this whole thing is, Joel Klatt said it best, and I agree with him. Every mistake that happened, every shortcoming Texas had in that game, it's not like it's new. We've seen it before. It's the repeating mistakes, and this time, which I really liked about, because I agree with it, was that it wasn't just one squad of the team. Offensively, you had drop balls and you couldn't convert on third down. You had the opening drive where Wingo drops a wide open touchdown and you had to settle for 3. Offensive failure. Defensive failure. The 2 fourth downs and the 1 drive right before the onside kick. Let me get back to the onside kick. And at the same time, the just total exposure of our secondary. We were getting thrown on like it was nobody's business. You said it best, though, Matt. We actually contained the run game pretty decently, but we couldn't stop the passing. That was your fear going into the game, and we let that, and that fear came true. And then finally, special teams. Guys, I've been kind of harping on this whole season. We haven't, even though the special teams has improved, we still had mistakes, whether it was out of range, still trying to find Shipley's range with the 55 to 60 plus yard field goals, to just random shanks that we've seen. And even our last game against Vanderbilt, we screwed the pooch on it on an onside kick. Thankfully, it went out of bounds. It didn't hurt us. But look, the onside that Kirby threw at us, we were totally unprepared for it. It's the same now, and that's a special teams failure. So it was in all 3 squads in all 3 phases of the game. Texas failed, and that's why we lost the game. And we can't be mad at it because we've seen all 3 of these phases show these errors in previous games. So it's tough. A lot of hard questions need to be asked of the team and the coaching staff, especially. But at the same time, guys, you got to say it like this. Sark said it best in his press conference. It's a 2 game season. You still have 2 goals of winning every home game and winning against both your rivals. Okay, you can win every home game at DKR this year, which is something we haven't done in over 3 or 4 years, which is tough to hear. Um, we could beat every rival, which is Oklahoma. This rivalry with Arkansas, it's renewed, even though there's not a trophy. It is an old Southwest Conference rivalry, and of course A&M. That's two trophy games in the season, and they're all at home at DKR. So there's some things to still fight for and to play for. It might not be a CFP, but it's for pride. And we're about to find out this culture real quick right now, this toughness that we've been talking about and given praise to in the locker room through adversity after overtime wins and unsettling losses. We're about to find out real quick what it is because this is a Texas team that for the first time in a while since I was in college truly has no chance of controlling their destiny, letting what powers be determine their postseason hopes, you know? And I'm just going to say it. There is one more goal out there that people don't think about is if we can beat Arkansas and A&M, we're 9-3. Fine, we don't go to the CFP, but we got to win the bowl game, and that's a 10-win season. And if you tell me a 10-win season, win every game at home, and beat both your rivals, it's a successful season in my book. And that whole is this an underachieving season question that was asked on Monday is out the window. But it's a lot of things, man. Texas has to really find its identity. But if I was to tell the Longhorn fans one thing, guys, the season's over. Just put it as a fact. The season is over for us, CFP wise. CFP wise, it's over. But the actual football season still continues. Let's look to 2026. Let's look to the future. But we can still take this time now to address the issues we have so we become a full team next year and compete for a national championship. Because we can all agree the true date was never 2025. The true date to compete for a national championship was 2026. So now we realize we have more work to do over this offseason, maybe than what we expected. And trust me, a Texas revenge tour, as we have lived through last year or 2 years ago, is very successful for Texas. When we had to do the what I called the ass kicking fiesta of us leaving the Big 12 and getting revenge on basically everyone, this 2026 season kind of already has that feeling of we're going to take revenge on all these teams. And guess what? No Alabama, no Georgia. The stars could align next season. And so I have a lot of hope. There's all these things are very fixable, and it is not very hard for us to go get personnel. So that's my thoughts on this.
I like how you brought up this will test our culture. We're pretty much out of the playoff, and yeah, it's objectively a letdown season because Sark himself, I know he was trying to, fight that at the press conference on Monday, saying underachieving by whose standards? The AP voters? No, Sark, it's your standard. You're the one that's always hinted at in your press conference. We want to be playing January 20th in Miami. We want to play for a national championship. We're a playoff program. You said this continuously over the past 3 years, and credit to you, you've built it this way. But yeah, it's been an underachievement so far this season. But like you said, Kyle, I mean, we can get to 10 wins. We can sweep our rivals, and if we beat A&M, we could beat three top 10 teams in one season. And if you get to 9-3 and you look at the schedule, yeah, we weren't a great team. We are such a flawed team, and we're gonna get into that. We're gonna talk more about the Georgia game here in a second. But 9-3 with this schedule, with two of the losses being in Athens, in the Horseshoe, and aside from those being potentially 9-1, that's that's a forgivable letdown season. That's a really hard schedule to navigate, especially with the young team. And Josh Payton, the casuals out here, will always say that we pointed to 2025 as the year for Texas. That is objectively untrue. 2026 has always been the year. Just look at the youth on the team. So yeah, I like what you said. We're working towards next year now. Get the young guys in. Make sure the culture is persevering through the hard times. Don't let it just bottom out. If you lose to Arkansas, this could get really ugly, really uncomfortable. So just make sure you take care of business. Arkansas is a good team, and then A&M. That's a one-off. We can beat them. We usually beat them. Just Let's just beat Arkansas and then get to that game and see what happens. But as far as culture, Sark was asked about the penalties. The penalties have been a problem this entire season, the entire even last season and the year before when we were good. We had NFL players everywhere. Penalties have been a problem. O-line penalties have been a big problem. Special teams penalties, and Sark was asked about it on Monday, and his response was a non-response. Basically, he just was passive aggressive. We're getting called for penalties. Didn't elaborate on why. And then the next statement, he's talking about how he's confident in the team because our culture is rock solid and he loves the culture. Um, we're like the lowest rated team in college football in terms of penalties. I think we're like dead last in most penalties, total penalties per game. We are dead last. So something's not computing because culture means discipline, means consistency, and the penalties are the exact opposite of culture in my eyes. So this goes back to the global problem with Sark, CEO versus play caller Sark, I feel like, because when he's so valiant about wanting to be a play caller, but you lose kind of the global view of the program. I mean, Sark was getting coached circles around by Kirby on Saturday. He got outcoached so bad, and I'm not against Sark as a play caller, but we need to free him up as a CEO. Is more so why I want us to hire an offensive coordinator to take some of that load off and let Sark run the program and focus on discipline in the details and situational moments. Because we lost this game off a few situational just brain farts that Texas had like three or four in a row that just let this thing get out of hand. It was 14-10, and Texas was seizing momentum of the game, getting comfortable, getting stops, offense was moving the ball despite our penalties, and then we had a couple untimely, just stupid, undisciplined things happen, and then the game's over, and it's a rout. So I want Sark this offseason to really just kind of tear it down to the studs, and we need to fire some of the staff and revamp some things, and of course revamp the roster as well because there are some deficiencies all over the place. But I'll pass it back to you, Kyle. I mean, any ideas on how we can fix this?
Ooh, okay, Matt, you opened it up for me. Let's go with this. I liked what you said. That was, I'm gonna change my attitude now. I was dead and about tired of a couple of minutes ago, but I'm excited now because you know what? In my world, in my job of finance, I am what they call the Inquisition. I personally weed out weakness and get rid of it at my job, and it's fun. So I love getting to do that with my Longhorns. I want to focus on what you said in Sark's press conference. The question was asked about penalties, and his exact response was, "Well, what type of penalties?" That was that non-answer you talked about. Well, Sark, I'm going to come at you then. What the reporter didn't dig into because he was totally bamboozled by the answer. Okay, what type of penalties, Sark? Well, I'm talking about the holding penalties in general, holding and offsides. These two holding penalties happen on linemen and on your receivers because they do not know how to block. They do not know technical discipline of their hands need to be on the steering wheel column, aka the chest plate, grabbing it, head collision first, and then you're driving and you're lifting up. You're not trying to push them like this. You're hiking your hips and you're pushing them up almost like a front press and use those bench press muscles, not the fly muscles, okay? So that's a coaching issue. And then when it comes to the false starts, that's from a lack of discipline. That is from your coaches just saying, we're not prepared for it. The jumping off sides on fourth down, that drive killed us. That's what resulted in a touchdown that got to the onside kick. So there's definitely some defensive skills that needs to be doing, but at the end of the day, it is offensive, and I'll say also special teams. So what I would tell you is this. I like what you said. I think Sark is totally overwhelmed. Yes, I agree. We need to keep him as a play caller, or I at least believe he needs to be a play caller, but he has too much on his plate of being the GM, GM, play caller, head coach, there's too much on his plate. So we actually need to get him some coaches around him that are willing to take this off, but not take that stress off, but not be a unofficial like coordinator. So here's number one problem. We can't run the ball. we can all agree we have had trouble running the ball, and it's really stemmed from our offensive line. Well, Kyle Flood, I'm sorry. I'm a Kyle too. Kyle's defend Kyle's, but this is unexcusable now. Kyle Flood is your run game coordinator and offensive line coach. Well, his offensive line unit's the one who's been bullied for the past really 2 seasons. He hasn't had that dominating, even though we give him high talent recruiters. He's just kind of kept them as is and put them in. And now this year, when all the recruits are gone, we've lost all these guys to the NFL. We realize he hasn't developed the second strings, the third strings well enough at all. And he's deficient, and that's why we're going to need to go to the portal to get some veteran offensive linemen. Well, if he can't develop players, he is a run game coordinator and we can't run the ball effectively, then why is he even here? And of course, his guys are still getting these penalties on top of it. So now he's hindering his squad's now hindering. Why is Kyle Flood still here? You want to take some responsibilities off of Sark, get a better offensive line coach who can actually train, develop, scout high school talent, take them and develop, find the missing pieces in the transfer portal, and actually run the dang football. If you can be that run game coordinator where you can actually take that whole side of the offense and let Sark just deal with passing and getting those and doing all the crazy scheming, then that's how we get this offense humming again. So we got to get rid of Kyle Flood. That's number one. That's number one. Number two, Banks, pole assassin. He needs to go. He's gone. Because I came to this epiphany today while working out. Or Banks as is our special teams coordinator and our tight ends coach. Listen to what I'm going to say on this one. Special teams, ever since he's been here, has been abysmal. Granted, we had Bert Auburn for 3 years and he was awful. But the fact is, Banks stuck with him for that long and never found a replacement, went to the portal, got some depth, built a kicker battle, nothing. We had to live with Bert for a long time post Dicker the kicker, longer than what we should have. So he's had a span now of bad special teams. And now this season, he got the kicker, but now we're seeing he gets beat on onside kicks, this specialty stuff. The specialty change of momentum type plays on special teams. He's never been a good coordinator of that. And at the same time, this year finally, the tight end game is not that impressive. Yes, we had Gunnar Helm last year, but he's an anomaly. He stayed here for all 4 years. Before that, we had Sanders. Well, guess what? He was a transfer in. He didn't get much development. He was one and done. So as you can see, he also can't develop talent. He has to get it provided to him via the transfer portal or a guy who actually is willing to stay here 4 years and just learn the system, like Gunnar. So if you ask me, we can keep the kicker. We can keep Shipley unless we need to get a new one because he graduates. But we need to get a new tight ends and special teams coordinator. You get these two changes in the coaching staff. The defense will be dealt with, I think, next season. I don't really. The jury is still out on Akina, in my opinion. I think he's done so well in the past that we still have to give him a mulligan on this because honestly, I'm just gonna say it, guys. I'm not a fan of the walk-on turned scholarship player in the secondary. We had Dylan Haynes back in the day and Charlie Strong, and he was a total liability. Taff is a little bit better. He's smarter. He hits harder, but he still misses those things every once in a while. And even though he's our guy, he's our general, I just don't like him physically. So we're gonna get rid of Taff. We're gonna get rid of a couple of these other dudes, and we're gonna have to replace them with that. So Akina could potentially recruit some good, decent talent. So we'll see about that. But you really need to fix the special teams. You need to fix the offense, and I'd start with Kyle Flood and Coach Banks and get rid of them first. That's also how you send a message to the rest of the team of get your house in order. Get yourself ready because now it is time to win no matter what. If we do not win this year, jobs are on the line. And this is how you set a precedence going into the offseason.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I think it's kind of ironic, Kyle, because I'm kind of in agreement with you regarding Kyle Flood. I think the whole Sark era here, our O line has never been that good. It was good last year, but it wasn't like physically imposing, except like against Kentucky and A&M and like cupcakes. When the money's on the table, our offensive line has been bullied consistently, even when we had Kelvin Banks there and a bunch of fifth year seniors from Tom Herman and Cam Williams on the right tackle, who was also an NFL player. They've always been undisciplined and they've always been um, just soft. I don't know if that's a Tory Becton thing, because I know I love how we're healthy, a lot healthier than we are with Tom Herman's program with Yancey McKnight. We stay healthy, and that's huge. But we don't have that physicality in the offensive line room at all. We have it defensively, so it makes me think it's not really a Tory Becton thing. The defensive line has been physical pretty consistently the last 3 years. So I think it's more of a Kyle Flood thing. Jeff Banks, I'm either way on that. I do think you have some recency bias. He had some really good special teams units the first couple of years, mainly in 23. I think we had a really good special teams unit back then when Bert Auburn wasn't actually shanking every kick. But yeah, it's trending poorly. I would not be sad if he left at all. Having two critical roles on the team at once, tight end and special teams, and the tight ends have been a joke this year. Yeah, I wouldn't be sad to see him go at all. Dwayne Aquino, I don't know, man. It looks like he lost his fastball. Our secondary was so good last year, and I get it. You lose Makuba, you lose Barron, but a lot of those guys that are still there, Michael Taft, Gilbo, Muhammad, they played like pretty much every snap last year, or most of them. McDonald played a lot too, and it feels like they're getting worse. Like Taft played horribly against Georgia. There's no way to put it, and another way to put it. And it's we'd kind of consistently seen progression, improvement the last 3, 4 years of Sark. Like every player, progresses, develops, and that was kind of what was so exciting about it. It was kind of like just a global thing. Like everyone gets better as they learn the system and get more acclimated. This year, like commodities are like getting worse, getting exposed. I don't know if that's a PK scheme thing. Like people are figuring out how to move the ball on PKs, bend but don't break style pass defense. So that's something that needs to be evaluated this offseason because, these next two games, man, we're playing two dynamic offenses, dynamic quarterbacks, especially Taylon Green. That guy's dangerous. And then A&M has really good receivers and a good O-line. So it's not going to get any easier these next 2 weekends. So we need to find a temporary patch, but I do think Akina might be a one and done type thing. And I think Inside Texas and other people have hinted that it was a one and done thing with him, that a move will be made there. I could be wrong on that, but overall, I agree with you, Kyle. The staff needs to be shaken up, and I really am of the belief that we need to get Sark off the play calling duties. It can still be his offense. It can still be him with the play design, him with the game planning, him with the opening script, but he should not be going through his binder of notes that he's always doing consistently because you lose your bird's eye view of situational football in all three phases. I feel like a little bit when you're just so focused on trying to get a first down, trying to figure out the down and distance, the hash, substitutions. Like that's a lot of stuff on his table. And then even in the offseason too, like think about during the offseason, some of these OCs that are just like PK and these OCs that are just coordinators, their whole offseason is predicated on just, grinding film, watching Georgia film all offseason, watching A&M film, OU film, and finding deficiencies in their defensive game plan. And I'm sure Sark does some of that, but if he is doing it, that takes away from him, with everything else globally with the team. So it's just kind of like I feel like we're allocating resources poorly in that sense, and I'd like to see him freed up. I don't care if Milby's calling the plays. Actually, I wouldn't hate that at all. I know he hasn't been an OC before, or actually he has, but we don't need a flashy OC. I don't think. I just think we need Sark freed up. Is my main point because our offense is been bad the last couple of years, and I know last year we had NFL players that kind of bailed us out a lot of the time, but this year we don't have them, and that leads me to another thing. Our wide receivers are terrible. I wrote our wide receivers suck with like 5 exclamation points on my note card. They suck. It's a shame because like DeAndre Moore and Emmett Mosley, they're pretty good players, man. But everyone else in that room, Wingo, I don't know, man. Wingo, of course, he's a great athlete. He's gifted. He's got, he makes a great play here and there. But you can't rely on this guy to be the guy, at least right now. Maybe next season, if he stays around, he can be that guy. But he's just too sporadic. That one play, like opening, was it the first play? We threw a little bubble pass to Ryan Wingo, and it's blocked really well. Like he literally could have scored, I think, if he just stays on his feet, but he trips on air. Then he drops a really untimely third and 8 mesh route, which he would have gotten the sticks and probably led to an opening drive touchdown. And the whole complexion of the game feels a little different. So he's just such an unclutch situational player. As Arch Manning throws that bomb to him and it hits him in the hands and he just drops it and then falls on his face. And it's just very frustrating that this is the guy, the $1 million receiver we're paying for is our wide receiver one, and this is the product we get when we've had A.D. Mitchell, Matthew Golden, and Emmett Mosley. I mean, Emmett Mosley's probably our other best receiver. He's been good, but he's limited as an athlete. He's a great receiver, but he's not going to outrun anyone like Zachariah Branch was doing, running circles around our defense. And really, it just makes me feel like for the first time in a while, at least the last 3 years, we don't have the athletes, at least in the wide receiver room. And, Parker Livingston, bless your heart. I'm glad you're on the team, man, but it's just like nothing's going on over there whenever he's on the field. Nothing's going on. He's not an advantageous out. I mean, he's a decent route runner, but he's not an advantageous athlete to, get separation. So that's just, half the field's gone whenever he's out there. And then our tight ends are doing nothing too, like you said, Kyle. And our running backs, we were running the ball. It's kind of ironic that the offensive line it played well, I thought, against Georgia. There were holes there, and we were getting pushed. 16-yard run right out the gate, 5 yards runs for Weiser. Like we were getting pushed. There was a pocket for Arch, but man, it got bad. It got real bad. And yeah, man, these wide receivers are just not it. It's not it. It just blows my mind that Sark had a room this past season with Bond, Golden, and then the year before Mitchell, Worthy, and then all the great rooms he had at Alabama and USC. And then he saw Parker Livingston, Ryan Wingo, and all of our 5 stars on the bench that aren't good enough to see the field, the freshmen, and thought, yeah, that's good enough. So next season, that needs to be a focal point is getting some cheat code wide receivers because that's the ultimate just the trump card equalizer in the sport right now. It's invaluable. I'm looking at the DeCorian Moore, Cam Coleman, guys like that. You need one of them at least, and we'll see if that can help because God, we need some playmakers. We don't have them.
Okay, I'm just gonna say one thing about you. I need to add something to your Parker Livingston comment. He's a nothing more than a glorified Kai Money. So let's
Yeah,
just chill. Let's chill out with that, okay? And I hated Kai Money. That guy pissed me off. I was so good. Can you imagine me as a post senior graduate and there's like, Kyle, did you ever party with a guy named Kai Money? I said, if I ever party with a guy named Kai Money, I would need you to, slap me. You would never have seen prime, RC Kyle hanging out with Kai Money ever. So yeah, unless Sark was trying to be, I like your point on the wide receivers too. That there really was, it was a young room, and there was no veteran presence. It was Worthy, and then before that, it really was kind of Bond and Golden, and it was really a mix of guys and even a couple transfer guys who came in that were the leaders of the wide receiver room last year. Thank God for Whittington for as long as we had him because he was really just the de facto. We don't have a Whittington or a Devin Duvernay. We need something like that. And I think we can. Devin Duvernay and Whittington were both Texas born, grown 4-year guys that we developed. And I believe someone that we may have just recruited could be the next Devin or Jordan. But we need to get some more veteran presence in here. There's really two things that we're going to find. There's two things I really want to talk about here right now, and that is the big stat that's going out is that apparently the people who have the top out of the top 25 transfer portals this past off season, like 10 of them are ranked in the top 10. One, Miami, Texas Tech, I think a few other, a couple, and now you take that statistic and you take what's happened to teams like Clemson, who totally neglect the transfer portal, and you see what happened to them, you're now realizing the transfer portal, when Sark was using it the first 2 years, was more of like, I'm going to get my cherry and my sprinkles on the top of the sundae. And it worked for him because there wasn't as much movement when this transfer portal had first started. People only started to abuse it later. So the first 2 years, transfers were like, let me get that last missing piece, that little caveat, that you know, complementary piece that I need for my team. This year, we've done it the past 2 years. It's led to success, and it kind of was that little bit of a complacency, I feel like, with Sark. It's like, well, you know what? Let's not try to fix what's not broke. And who to funk it that we realize now teams are using the transfer portal as a massive backbone improvement or upgrade. They're using it as like a knee replacement for these teams. They're totally gutting parts of their program and their team and just totally outsourcing it to finding veteran talent, really now more mercenary talent. And so I think that's why this season's a little, now look at our offensive line situation. You're kind of like, why didn't we touch the portal? Well, we didn't think we need to do it because it wasn't really part of our original portal strategy. Now we're realizing, oh my God, this is, we're really now going to have to start balancing more of focusing on the portal just as equally as much as high school recruiting. So we're going to need more personnel to take that strain off of Sark. But it also, that's just a fundament. That's one of his just coaching fundamentals he has to change now for himself. And then number two, the NFL. We have had this Texas team has had total development. What makes it night and day between the Tom Herman and Charlie Strong teams and even those late Mac Brown teams is that we are now producing number one or first round draft picks at a astonishing rate. You know, I remember back in 2017, it was Big Noon Kickoff. Urban Meyer made a comment about us because they were there calling our game, and it was Texas just doesn't develop guys. Look at the NFL; they don't put out draft picks. They sign there. It's a lot of unsigned free agent guys. That tells me why Texas is bad is they don't develop their players. Guess what? I agree with that. And now that you see these Texas teams producing NFL talent, we're really going to see the results of this team is if they're even going to produce anyone for the draft this year who's coming out from this team. Is this even going to be a draft worthy class that Texas produces? And when that comes out, I think that's what's going to help quell a lot of the, sideline couch fans, the Josh Pates of the world that, like, look, guys, you knew this Texas team was going to be bad. We knew this Texas team was going to be bad. Look how many NFL draft picks we sent out. It wasn't that many, and it wasn't as many first rounds as we usually thought. So then everyone will kind of forget about that. But I think that'll be the last piece to evaluate this Texas team. When it comes to Sarkisian, I really have to fight you on this, man. When it comes to Sarkisian getting an OC, I just don't believe that works. You know, I have had in my life, in my football career, I've played for two coaches with different systems when it comes to offensive coordinators. Okay, number one was the legendary six-time TAF state title Pee Wee flag football coach Carlos Reyes, my father. He never had an he his first our first year of Pee Wee, he had an OC. We went and lost the first 4 games ever. He fired the OC and started calling the plays himself. Next thing you know, we're winning games and we end up winning the championship that year. Just no big deal. But then I also played for a guy named Hal Wasson at South Lake Carroll, where he was an offensive-minded coach and had his own idea of scheme, but had to hire an offensive coordinator in a guy named Clayton George. And I can tell you now, towards the end of their relationship, it was rocky because eventually, even though they shared similar ideas of how they want to run in the scheme, how they want to manage the scheme at the end of the day is where it clashed. I just don't think if you have an offensive minded head coach like Sarkisian, bringing in an OC is really going to be the help for him. Yes, you need to I always saw it, and how my dad taught me in my football philosophy is your coordinator is there to supplement the side of the ball that you're not as savvy on. So like Sarkisian, that's why you have a DC because he has nothing. He should have nothing to do with calling the defense. it is more of that coordinator position is more of a compliment, not a manager, as I'd say. I feel like that's just gonna it gets you're now mixing schemes, you're potentially mixing philosophies. You could get that hot shot OC that comes in for Texas, but he's trying to make a name for himself, so he just abandons what Sark's doing and just installs a whole new offense. And you never know. These situations could set you back. You don't know the personnel until you're in the season. So why risk adding that new factor to your team of an offensive coordinator when you really just have all full trust in Sark? Because again, it's like his press conference said, that's why you hired him. That's why we hired him, was because we want him to have that offensive execution mindset here, something that Tom and Charlie just could not do. So
I,
I'll go with that, man. That's all I gotta say about that. But with you, what about this? What about Akina has you uncertain? Because I personally like him, but I'm also a homer for the past. But I know you've evened me out a couple times on Coach Akina.
Before I go to that, I want to just add a couple more things in the offensive coordinator dilemma that we're having. Uh, I would agree with you that the reason we hired him is because he's a good play caller, and I don't think he's a bad play caller. But statistically, our offenses have been mediocre at best the last two seasons, and that's including that team loaded with NFL players, the last two teams. So I think the offense is a lot to be desired with the offense, a lot of meat left on the bone. And I think additionally, more importantly, our situational football and our disciplined, detailed moments in the game, we always lose the big moments every time, it seems like. And that's coaching. That's where the head coach, like Kirby Smart, makes a huge difference, making that decision to go for this punt, to go for this onside, to go and bark at the refs to get a review so they can save a timeout and then run out the offense instead of punting the ball like they were going to initially and saving a timeout. Those things Sark fails to do consistently. And Kirby's the best at it, so not everyone's going to be Kirby Smart. But I think something needs to happen where maybe if you don't want to give it to Sark, give it to someone else higher, like an assistant head coach, like Gary Patterson type guy that can just manage the game. But then Sark's a prideful guy. He's not going to want to have this guy, overriding him on big decisions. So that's kind of my main argument for it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think he'll end up doing it after all. But I will say, only one team's ever won a Natty in college football. I know Pee Wee's different, but in college football, only one team's ever won the Natty with a offensive play caller who was the head coach, and that was Jimbo Fisher in 2012. That just goes to show that was a whole different time because that's Jimbo Fisher would never do that in the modern era now. So it's just when Ryan Day gave up the play calling, Ohio State broke through. When there's another example, I'm blanking on it, but historically, at least recently, it's very hard to win a national championship. And it doesn't mean it can't be done, but I think we'd be better served, allocating Sark to the CEO role, but still being involved with still being his offense, just not every play him being head down in the play sheet. Dwayne Aquino, I don't know, man. I'm really indifferent on it. I was never excited about the hire to begin with. I think he's just been around forever, man. Sometimes people lose their fastball. The corners seem to have regressed. Jalen Gilbo, he's gotten worse in coverage. It feels like Taft's got. I know it's a safety, but our corner's not very good. Kobe Black looks very uncoordinated out there, and he's a five-star guy. And Malik Muhammad's our only one that's solid. Cade Phillips has shown some promise, but he's a freshman. It's such a stark contrast to the secondaries that we had last year and even the year before. Our secondary wasn't great. We romanticized that defense because of the D line that we had. But we had Jaron Thompson, Keaton Crawford. We had a bunch of Jags back there, but they weren't this bad. Ryan Walsh would at least, cover people up. Terrence Brooks wasn't that good, but it was overall a better product. I mean, anecdotally, I don't have the stats in front of me, than the product we're seeing the last couple of weeks. And this is just an alarming thing. And I just think that at Texas, we could go get a bigger splash higher. Terry Joseph and Blake Gideon. Maybe Blake Gideon, losing him is the one that hurts. He was the safety. Now the safeties coach. Now he's the DC at Georgia Tech, kind of tearing it up there. So I don't know. We need to shake up that somewhere in the secondary. Maybe that Mark Offrey guy who coaches the safeties, I believe. Maybe he needs to go or something. We need a technician back there because, like you said, these guys don't know how to just do simple things, which is leading to these PIs. They don't know how to, run. They don't know how to like play the game where you're holding but no one can see it, like because that's what a lot of good teams do. They interfere on every play, but they're slick about it. They're stealthy about it, and we don't have any of that high IQ football at all that I've noticed this year in the back end. So that's my main reason, I guess. But I don't know. I'm not deep in the film, so I couldn't really elaborate more than that. But it's just sad that the secondary wasn't this bad to start the year. And to be honest, we didn't play anyone good passing the ball, save Ohio State, but they didn't want to throw the ball more than 5 yards down the field. So maybe they've always been bad, and we just haven't. Now it's being exposed since we're playing good quarterbacks and good receivers. But I didn't expect the secondary to be such a big weakling on the team like it is.
Do you think it would be possible to go out and go get a fired or a downgrading NFL safeties coach? Because as we have now seen in college football, on the defensive side, at least, not the offensive side, but on the defensive side, bringing in a veteran NFL talent type of coach has really revamped a lot of these defenses and taken them to the next level. Starting off with like Wink Martindale at Michigan, like holy crap, look at Michigan. They, even though there are some glaring holes and there's still some criticisms, they have been staunch and being consistently in the top 10 when it comes to just overall defenses. And now look what we ran into week one with Ryan Day and his hire of the Beard, the disgraced Patriot. Um, and he look what he's done for their offense, for their defense. They lost their DC to Penn State, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, we had such a good defense. Our coordinators going to Penn State." Little did they know it wasn't the court. They actually dodged a bullet with that one, getting rid of him because his defense was totally up the cause of why Franklin is no longer a head coach, but the head coach at Virginia Tech. He's really brought that forward. So do you think it's possible for Texas to go get some NFL talent at the safeties position?
Yeah, that's what Sark's been doing. He's been going to the NFL a lot. Chris Jackson, who's been kind of trash, honestly, our wide receiver coach, NFL guy, and then Kenny Baker, D line coach, who's been solid NFL guy. So yeah, I think for sure. I don't know that who we would hire necessarily, but yeah, I think that might be a good idea as long as they can recruit and more importantly, just be able to develop. That's the number one thing because with NIL, we're going to get decent players.
It's we need to get that development better because
Yeah.
we have definitely seen that we have some coaches now who are just like, and it's a growing trend now with the NIL coaching. Is just that, you know what? Hey man, it's okay you messed up the rep in practice, but I know you were going to get it on Saturday type of vibe. I just need to teach you the scheme, and that is it. So what our play calls are and our signs, and then you do everything yourself. That coaching style is a thing, and it's a growing trend in college football as we've seen. Maybe Akina's like that because he's old school, and I never really liked the whole idea of going and getting a coach that you fired multiple times and bringing them back. Remember that 2004 defensive coordinator, and then we brought him back in like 2013, and it was just a bad situation all around.
Yeah.
I never liked bringing back the retired or old coach, so
Yeah. I agree.
I just didn't think that was a real good fit. But at the same time, hey, look, like you said, he trashed wide receivers coach NFL, defensive line coach that was from the NFL, and he's good. See, my point is, I think we need the NFL talent on defense, and that's what's gonna. The NFL coaches stay on defense, and I think that's a good compliment for Sark because he doesn't want that to deal with that competition on offense. I think he's a little prideful.
Yeah, he's very prideful, and he's been more and more snarky with his press conferences and stuff. His whole demeanor's changed, and I guess we'll talk about there's rumors flowing around, there's smoke going on about Sark, going to the NFL or whatnot, or having personal life issues. But the reality is, I expect Sark to be here. I hope he stays here. He's the best coach that we've had outside of Mac Brown in the last 40 years, maybe, and you know It's a bad year, but I mean, by Charlie Strong standards, it's a great year. So it's like kind of like be careful what you wish for. Um, and you still got a chance to get to 10 wins, to sweep the rivals, and build the next year with the young team. So people that are calling for Sark's job are just stupid. It's just stupid. But there is smoke out there that it may be an NFL move for Sark if he were to do that, but hopefully not because I don't see us upgrading over Sark. What are your brief thoughts on that? I don't want to give it too much credit to this. It's probably just message board rumor, but what are your thoughts on Sark to the NFL and what that would mean?
The only time I see a coach leaving for the NFL out of college is like Jim Harbaugh. You win the national championship and then you just dip. So I think we have Sark until we win a national championship, and then we'll deal with those NFL rumors then. But I think that's really the only way you get a coach, especially an offensive-minded coach from college going to the NFL, is you have to win national championship. Just in general, you have to know what winning the whole thing is like because winning the Super Bowls is that's even more complicated and harder than winning just a CFP. So, you know,
Yeah.
I just don't think I think you just have to win the whole thing. And until we do that, we're not going to deal with Sark going to the NFL. Um, but if I was to say though, finally though, yes, I believe Sark will go to the NFL, but not now when he wins the championship. And maybe it's next season, maybe it's in 3 years or 4 years. But at least he will get us what we wanted, which was at least one national championship from him and leaving the program in a better position than it was from Charlie Strong and Tom Herman.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think what we should do is, this team is young. You have a nice core coming back next year. I think you do the Ohio State move, what they did and we might very well do it because when Michigan won the Natty, Ohio State donors got so upset. Day lost to Michigan for like the third year in a row, and he watched Michigan go undefeated, win the Natty, and then Ohio State fans like, okay, we're gonna load up this roster, the best roster you've ever seen, and we're gonna force Ryan Day's hand. If you can't get over the hump with this roster, maybe it's not for you. And I think with Arch Manning as a senior next year, and a lot of these key pieces we'll have coming back, Colin Simmons, I think it's a prime opportunity to portal in, 10 to 12 just elite veteran players and really just go all in on stacking the roster. The schedule lightens up next year, like you said, no Georgia. There's a for sure path to the playoff, and let's just see if Sark can get that natty next year, the year that we've all circled, and then yeah, finish the Arch Manning era, then right off to the NFL with that natty. I think that could very much be the plan for Sark and the big brass donors, because yeah, I do agree the NFL nowadays compared to the college game is just such like an easier lifestyle. You get an off season. You don't have to worry about making sure your players on your team aren't going to portal every 5 seconds, that everyone's paid. There's actually like, salary caps and contracts that make sense in the NFL, whereas college football is just the wild, wild west. It's a full-time thing, and winning in the SEC is really hard. So I agree. I think that's where it's going to end up, but I don't foresee it being this offseason. I hope it's not this offseason because this is not the offseason you want to do it with all these high-level jobs being open and not that many high-level coaches on the market. But yeah, I think Sark and Arch are going to be tied together till the end. And I guess I'll shift this to an Arch Manning thing, something positive. Arch has grown up, man. Arch looked really good against Georgia. He's doing all he can. People are dropping his passes left and right. But I thought Arch played well, and I'm excited to see him continue to progress, especially next season. If we stack him with a great roster, I can definitely see those Heisman talks, all the you know the hype that was promised to Arch kind of coming true next year. You can see the potential. You can see the NFL moments, and it's just exciting to see him develop despite everything else just being a dumpster fire.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And this Texas team has we are really the fan base needs to relax on this one because it is you're about to really watch a lot of these programs who fire their coach going into the next season that it's going to just be a total dumpster fire. It is not always greener on the other side of the pasture. And really, outside of at Texas now, we know here's when you fire the coach. You give him to the end of the season. You give him to the end of the season because that's what we did with Tom Herman. And Charlie Strong lost to TCU. The season was over. That was the last game of the season. We fired him in the parking lot. That's still the end of the season. But we have our thing. We have our standards at Texas. We do not. I do not see Sark totally regressing to a Charlie Strong esque or even Tom Herman esque type of team. We need to enjoy this week now because look, if we win out 9-3 Texas, we're going to the Citrus Bowl. It's a time to just go relax, have a good vacation, enjoy the holidays. But guess what? Now with the whole new portal schedule coming out, we're going to have that advantage of finishing up our season, not having to deal with the playoffs, where we can go get the transfer portal and we can go attack it aggressively. We've now had more time to focus on it, start making contact with those recruits and so on. And at the same time, it allows us to then go out and go get this year's high school crop. You know, that was Sark, that was Kirby, that was Saban even back in the day. They all complained about how the playoff schedule, if you're playing for a national championship, you're hurting your timeline for portal schedule recruiting and for high school recruiting and stuff like that. Well, guess what, guys? We're not in the CFP. We're in a bowl game. Once the bowl game's done, it's done. You can start your recruiting in the portal. And now that it's in the new year and the Citrus Bowl is well before the new year, this is a time then to put your money where your mouth is. You're going to have more time to recruit, to emphasize the portal strength and veterancy, and get this schedule ramped up and get ready for the schedule because I'm looking at it right now. It's a light schedule. I really think it is. You know,
Yeah.
the Ohio State game is in Texas, is here in Austin.
That one's gonna be hard, but the SEC schedule is light.
The SEC schedule is beautiful. LSU could either be with a you know Lane Kiffin year one, which we know Lane Kiffin year one is not very good, or it's with someone else and it's not who they wanted, and it's really bad. So that's good. Missouri is Missouri. We finally get to go after Heupel in Tennessee. That's the spicy game on our schedule is the Tennessee game next year,
Yeah.
and then we get revenge for Florida because they come back to Austin. We would roast those Gators. We're gonna kill them. Okay, and then we have Ole Miss and Mississippi State. You know, Mississippi State, they're circled now. We now know you can't just show up and play them, even though they're coming to Austin. But we next year's schedule is very light, and I like it. But yes, we need it. This will be the time to focus up and get prepared for it. And I didn't really. Is Arch really a senior next year?
Uh, a redshirt junior. So yeah, he'd be a fourth year next year.
Okay, he's a fourth year in school, but he's eligibility wise, you'll be a junior next year.
Yeah, so we could say for 2 more years, which honestly they may end up doing. That's just kind of the Manning way, which is
He might.
nice.
Well, as of how this season's going, yeah, he's gonna have to just to rebuild his draft stock because they're gonna want him to be just like Peyton and Eli, a high first round pick.
Well, yeah, he will be next year, but I'm saying he might stay for 2 more years after this. If I doubt that'll happen, but it's on the table. It's on the table. I think his stock's going up enough where he'll be a first rounder. Even if he went out this year, I think he would slip into the first round.
Oh
But
my god.
with you know some nepotism there, but also he's got some good film and some good stats and good measurables. But okay, so we're not going to really elaborate on the CFP this week because we're kind of out of it, unfortunately. Sad. But let's talk about the Arkansas game a little bit, then we'll get out of here. We got Arkansas coming to town. Texas favored by 10 somehow at home. Ant Hill will not be playing. Just announced broken hand. Hopefully we can get him versus A&M because golly, we're gonna need him. We're gonna need him this week too, man. Arkansas's offense is legit with Taylon Green. Their record sucks. They're like 3-7 or something like that. But they've played a lot of good teams close. I mean, last week they were in Death Valley and lost by 1 to LSU, and they nearly beat A&M at home. So they are not a cupcake by any means, especially it's a rival. They'll be fired up to play us. Bobby Petrino is the interim head coach, and they got talent on that roster, and they're explosive. And our secondary and defense have looked vulnerable, so this could be a very scary game for us. And honestly, you, I'm gonna end it how you started it, man. The culture of this team is very much tested this weekend. The A&M game, I'm sure we'll get up for, but this game right here, you lose to Georgia, the season's pretty much a wrap. Will you show up for Arkansas? Will you show up and get this win against a dangerous, not sexy team? Because that'll show maturity. That'll be something I want to see for next year. The young guys, stepping up. Ant Hill's out, so this is kind of a prove it game for just our culture. So Texas favored by 10. I would definitely hammer Arkansas to cover that, but hopefully Texas wins outright.
No, man, I really don't think anyone who fires their coach in general, they're 2-9 for a reason. It's organizational. I don't care if it's Bobby Petrino. I think Texas money lines this thing. I'm never gonna tell you to go -10. I'll say money line. Um, they're gonna win. It's in Austin. You gotta defend the house. Like I said, it's pride, and it's more likely that I believe that our front seven will just kill this dude before he even has a chance to throw the ball because I think they're going to be playing pissed off, which is a good thing for us. I think that because I trust the front seven to show up and try to protect the house. And so if that's the case, this Arkansas offensive line has looked like crap. So you think ours is bad? Theirs is horrible. So, it's one of those things where does our front seven just neutralize them completely because they can't run the ball and don't have time to throw? Does our offense just need to trot out there and win by 28 points and call it a day? You don't know. Or you could also have the offense doesn't even show up and the defense does this and we win by a field goal, you know?
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, man. I think Texas wins, but it's a crapshoot at what type of team this will show up.
Yeah. I'll go for the reverse jinx. Reverse jinx. I'll take Arkansas to win. I'll go 38-37. Arkansas wins, and it's mayhem, chaos. Dump, sound the alarms. But I hope I'm wrong. I'll be there. I'll be cheering for us. Forgot to mention I was in Athens this past weekend. Pretty nice campus, very nice college town. But golly, man, those fans were the most hostile, mean. A lot of them were just like soulless people. It felt like it was crazy how I did not expect that at all. They made Ohio State fans and Texas Tech fans feel a lot more civil. Um, and that blew me. I did not expect that, but it was a cool college football atmosphere, nice stadium. But just wanted to throw that in there. But yeah, we'll see what Texas can do this weekend, man. We'll see the chops of the cojones of the men in the locker room. Let's see Sark get this team fired up, man. I feel like Sark's been off, man. Just like his whole attitude and just it just seems off, man. We need something to get us fired up again.
We gotta get up for something, man. Gonna figure it out. Get your lunch pails and let's go to work. But man, that's so crazy about you saying that about these Georgia fans because my experience with them in person totally different. 2018, we were all just drunk and happy in New Orleans. It was awesome. Like we were all like, "I hope you guys win." No, I hope you guys win. You guys are great. You're like y'all have so much fun. We were so nice to each other for no reason. And even when we won, they're like, "Good game, man. That was a really good game." Y'all, you know what? Y'all showed us. We learned something from y'all today. And I was like, hey guys, it was just a good game. And Happy New Year. Then I hear this from you. I'm like, oh my God. What happened in the past, 4 years? Jeez.
Yeah, I don't know, man. But they were seeing red whenever they saw that burnt orange, man. They were ruthless. It was all weekend long, but it's all right, man. They have our number, so I couldn't really say much. I just smile at them and walk away.
I
But
beat him and we almost killed Uga. That's all I'm gonna
yeah,
say. I beat him and we almost killed Uga.
that's right. That's right. Well, you got anything else, Kyle, or you want to get out of here?
I got nothing else, man. Michigan's just going to do Michigan things, and they'll beat Maryland and Ohio State.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And sneaking into the playoffs. We'll be cheering for that, and we'll also be cheering for a nice Oklahoma hate watch this weekend. There's not really many good games. The SEC's taking the week off like they like to do this time of year. But there is one good SEC game, and that's Oklahoma, Missouri. And Oklahoma got that big win in Arkansas in Alabama, so they're in the playoff as of now. But if they lose Saturday to Missouri, they're out. So that would be so unfortunate if they lost to Missouri and slipped out of the playoff and joined us on the couch for
Well,
this December.
well, that's what I'm saying, man. I think if I don't know what the order of the games are, but there's still a chance chaos could just break out.
Yeah,
And if that happens, you know, it number one, it'd be funny. It'd be so funny and fun. Oh my God, it'd be great. But it would start with that game. It would 100% start with that
yeah,
game going down.
exactly, exactly. So just pray for chaos. More importantly, pray Texas just beats Arkansas and then beats A&M. That's it. That's it. And then we'll see. Maybe we'll get lucky. Either way, this team's not a good playoff team, but we'll cheer them on anyways. But all right, y'all. Well, thank y'all for watching. If you made it to the end, please comment that you did. We really appreciate it. And yeah, give us your thoughts on the team, man. Let us know what we're wrong about and what we're right about, and how you would fix it, and if Sark should be the OC, and just kind of how you see the next 12 to 24 months playing out for Texas. But yeah, thank y'all for watching. Give us some love in the chat, and we'll see y'all next week after Texas takes care of Arkansas. Hook 'em.
Welcome.